Hello, and today I have Tim C. Taylor, author, who done Chimera book, which he sent me, and he's done many other books as well. And we're going to talk about this book, and we're going to talk about another book that he recently released, and some possible books that may be coming out, maybe not. We shall talk about them. Yeah. So with this, there we go. Let's go for it.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you're here as well.
Yeah. There, I'm trying to hide. I don't know why that's happening.
I know. I'm trying to move myself over as well.
I'm confused by the camera. There we go. It's not difficult. You'd think we'd prep for this, wouldn't you?
I know.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having me on, Joe.
That's okay. So this book, the one that you sent me, do you want to tell me some more about this and the viewers, and then we can start from there?
Yeah. So this is Chimera Company. And as you noticed, it has lots of stories inside. Originally, it was published as a serial, and that's why it's got, as they call it, issues on the inside. So there's 2 seasons. So that the idea behind it, doing a serial, I was really quite keen on it because I realised, having written for quite a while, that one of the things that really stuck in my head and formed the way I like to read and write fiction was 2000 AD. I don't know if you've come across that. That's a comic, science fiction comic.
I haven't, no. I don't do many comics.
Okay.
That's terrible.
It was a weekly comic. It's still going. But very, I enjoyed it very much as a kid. And I liked the fact that even if I was reading a book or doing whatever, when 2000 AD came through the letterbox, I would know that would be read cover to cover before the evening was through. And one of the things that I find sometimes is there's so many books. I mean, as a booktube reviewer, I'm sure you're going to see this as well. Sometimes it's a little bit oppressive. You have all these books and you think, oh, I like that, and I want to read that, I want to read that, and I want to read that. But, and a new book comes through and you think, oh, well, I don't know, because I've got to stop reading the book you're reading or the series you're reading to read the new thing. So I have the idea that these individual stories, it's like TV episodes, if you like, that are about an hour and a quarter to read each. And they came out one a week. There were 8 in the first. So the book you've got there are 8 issues. So
yes,
I guess an 8-episode TV series box set. That's essentially what it is. So there's definitely a story. It goes all the way through. But the idea is each individual episode has its own start, middle, and end. And it resolves itself.
Well, that's nice because people can feel like they complete something, then they move on to the next one, complete again. Yes. So, I mean, I caught your interview with Casey and Griffin the other day, and Griffin said something via Eric Flint, I think, that if you're writing in series, and I do tend to write in series, you don't write book 2, you write a book that happens to be the second one in the series, right? But it has to work as a book on its own. So it was quite a different way for me to work. So it's like that on steroids, because each individual sort of chunk of the book is its own self-contained story. I mean, they do follow. It's sort of like, there's a quest sort of feel to that first season. So that it starts off with a sapper of the Legion, also Saibudu, who is the bloke that you recognise, that one. Yeah, I saw him on a pitch. I think it was on Facebook or on the YouTube video. So I saw him picture somewhere, and I didn't know it was. When you got this book, I was like, "Oh wow, I've seen him before." Sorry, I can't continue. I was just nervous before.
Yeah, I did put him on Facebook, and that's probably where
it was. Yeah.
So he starts off. He's having a bad day. He's ambushed by local rebels. He's a sapper of the Legion. Legion's one of the factions in this the setup of this universe. And then his home base is nuked. So it's a really bad day. He's got this, and his squad got this mission of carrying a message to contact on the far side of the planet, this ice planet called Rotorcus, which is lots of whites and greys and all those on the images. Ice world of Rotorcus. So he's got to battle through all the different things each week, essentially. So you get not the local rebels, but the galactic rebels, and you've got alien villages with little aliens of politics in there.
Oh, that's cool.
and they meet up partway through with their rivals. So I've got this idea that this Far Reach Federation is in a bit of a mess, really, going to pot. And there's different factions. There are factions outside sort of that are threatening to invade as well. But the two sort of main military ones are the Legion and the militia, and they hate each other. So the Legions think that, you know, we're like the super Marines, we're all super good, and we fight with proper battles. And the militia are all corrupt, and they're all sort of prison fodder. It's not quite as simple as that, but they hate each other. So about halfway through, this Legion team meet up with the militia. They're captured, actually, but in the end they end up, part of them combine forces, and they go to the city on the other side of the planet, and they meet their contact and pass on the information, and he turns around and tells them to F off, not interested. So it really doesn't go how they want, and then they're caught in a city which has been invaded by the rebels and overrun by the zombies. And, yeah, it's all a bit of a...
Zombies?
Yeah, well, I call them zombies. They're not perhaps sort of the fantasy horror zombies. But, I'm not quite sure what they are. But yeah, it's one of the factions that we will see.
Oh, cool.
Different things are all linked together. So the whole reason that Legion are there at all is because they're guarding some archaeological sites, because they've been digging up some things from before. So the people who lived there, as humans and other races, they came from our part of the galaxy 3,000 years ago on a one-way trip, and they're starting to realize why the area that they ended up with was depopulated.
Something's happened or something. Yeah.
So, yeah, there were people there before, but they've all gone.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I like that.
So yeah, they're learning a lot. Obviously, in the first, well, at the moment it's first season, but will become the first novel when it's republished shortly. Obviously, it has a story. They get to the end, and their message goes somewhere that matters. But there's lots of things that we don't know yet what's going to happen. But
That's good.
There's lots of factions, and things are going to resolve. And then the next, some of the people, not everybody makes it through the first book, but then there's more. So originally I did this as 9 episodes, and inside there are also some things like deck plans and logos for the rebels and schematics for the weapons and all sorts of stuff. Because the artist that I got involved with this is an excellent guy from South Africa, Cape Town, Vincent Sammy. Turns out he really got my idea of the serials. He loves 2000 AD, and he loved the idea of putting in all these extra little bits, extra artwork, and so on. So unfortunately, I didn't persuade enough people of this idea of doing things as a serial. I'm not the first to try it, but it's a difficult thing to really convince people of. So it didn't sell as well as I'd hoped, but people who read it gave some really good reviews. So I had a word with Chris Kennedy, who was a writer and a publisher.
Yes.
And he does Theogony books. That was his first press. So we had a little deal where he's got the rights to 5 Chimera Company novels. So my plan was always, if the serial thing didn't work, I would cut each of those in half, because they're all self-contained, and then make them into full, not because they're quite
they are, yes.
Make them into 4 novels and then run at a smaller novel pace. But when I really looked at it, coming back to what we said about books need to be properly self-contained and feel like you've had a proper story, I did think about all sorts of ways of making that work better in 2 novels, but it still has to be, you've got to get to the other side of the planet, and it just didn't work. So that's going to be republished shortly as a novel. So I don't know what we're going to do inside. We're not going to call them issues. We'll probably do something else, the artwork. But this, I've added recently a lot of extra material, so that will become 2 novels. But anybody who's read it, I've got your back, because anything that wasn't in that original version, that will be properly introduced for the next book, which is what I'm writing at the moment. And about 2/3 of the way through that, I would say. And there's quite a few factions, and there's quite a few characters. There's about a dozen main characters. So one of the things I like, it's a different way of working for me, is to have these sort of self-contained issues. One of the things I can do, that I can focus on one particular character on one issue, or for 2 or 3 issues, and then another location for another one. So rather than having sort of 4 parallel stories, I can move around and having a sort of satisfying, this is Osu's story, this is Vetch's story, this is, now we're going to see the Smugglers Guild for a couple of episodes, and see where we go with there. So they sort of discipline, if you like, of writing in issues, it's for me, it's quite energizing. It's a different way of working. So when I work on, for example, the Four Horsemen universe novels, I might talk about in a little bit, I approach them in a different way, and for me that keeps it nice and fresh. Different push, different style of working. So yeah, that's Chimera Company, and where are we up to with that?
That's cool. I just want to say, because you said about you had a little bit of art inside the book. As someone who's a fan of reading books, I do like when there's additional like stuff in there, like a little bit of art and something just to help flesh out the little world of like when you're doing stuff.
Yeah.
Because sometimes like the space books, I do like people put like a solar system or a bit of a mini sort of galaxy or something, just to kind of, because there's so much going on. I like that as a fan of stuff. Little things like that really do. I like anyway personally. So
yeah,
that's good.
I hope that the new publisher keeps that in. So what I said to Vincent, the artist, was each episode will have its own bit of artwork, but I wanted a poster like a movie. So it was a bit like Star Wars or science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
But each of these characters is on one of the issues inside. So I just finally, there you go. So that's
yeah. No, I like that. You could do that for like you're saying about like when you redo it about putting the art in. You could probably have that like when your chapter starts for like, which is going to be about that character. Just have that underneath. Just that chapter 20 is this character's story, and then you can have him. Yeah. Like basically what you've done there. But yeah, no, I like that.
We've got at the moment, if it's a Legion character, we've got the Legion emblem.
Nice.
And if it's militia, it's got the militia symbol. And then we've also got for the panhandlers, the rebel, which is the Rebel Alliance here, and for Department 9, which comes in the next season. It's like a rogue, deep dark ops department who thinks they know the right way to sort out the galaxies, to do it their way.
And people have to do it their way as well.
Yeah, and those people who don't want to do it their way, well, they just disappear. So it doesn't matter.
Well, it's effective in some ways, people it works, or they just disappear. So they've always, it always works out, doesn't it? There's no one to like complain.
So that I showed you something earlier on Facebook, that's Vincent Sammy. He did his thing. I think the lockdown in South Africa was quite a lot tighter than we had. So I mean, he's an artist. He wants to make art. So he has set himself every day. He would do a new illustration and do a Battlestar Galactica thing.
Yes, I like them.
And having, I don't know what it was, 40 days of lockdown or something like that. But then he said, well, I may as well do 52 and then Jokers and make a whole set of it. So he made all this stuff up. So, he obviously he can't sell it because he doesn't, it's somebody owns the IP for it all, but he just wants to make art. And he's just done something. I didn't ask him to. He just wants to do it. I think he really enjoys the being involved in creating as part of this Chimera Company series. So he's created a what do you call it? A sort of kit, a pack for the Department 9 operative with a gun and cards and guild tokens and all sorts of stuff. And again, the artwork is done. It's turned into cards, and it just looks fantastic. And it's amazing for me to think that. I made up characters and I gave them art direction, but he's made them real. I find it absolutely fascinating that something that just over there is where I, obviously you can't see that, is the pub. So Monday nights, that's where I have all my best ideas, in the pub, half price real ale. And I can remember dreaming up some of these ideas, and then months later or years so later, it's, this is a real thing, and it's a real guild token, and real artwork is all 3D and physical. And I find that fascinating that it's happened that way.
I like how, the other thing is how good they are at bringing this stuff to life. I think about stuff and I can't draw these things down. And some of these artists who just produce this work, it's just, and here's what he done. Obviously, you said you sent me the pictures. Now, it's really nice, like the gun and the case and everything that's in the gun, and all of the. They've even like a little blueprint of how the gun breaks down with the chamber thing that goes in it. I'll try and put a picture of it later when I edit this. I'll put a picture up on the screen, and just to show the people, it's really good what he's done.
It's certainly, yeah. Vincent's fantastic. Yeah, he's somebody a friend of mine recommended, because he'd done a cover for a publisher friend of mine, and I really hope that he goes on to bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger things. I know he's doing the cover for the next Neil Asher book, and so Neil Asher's perhaps a bit of a bigger name than me, possibly. So maybe that will, really push him into stratosphere where he belongs to be. He's a great artist.
Oh, that'd be good. Well, hopefully, it's nice for people to, exceed in these sort of areas. And I think I was talking to my brother a bit. I've got this artist. He's just doing a few characters for me, and I was like, "You paid someone to do that?" I was like, "Well, yes, but I can't do it. I can't draw that. Nowhere near anything like what he can do. And it's a trade, So people need to understand it's a trade as well. Just because they're drawing a character or doing a book pitch, it still takes labour, hours, time to do.
It does, and I think the expectation has gone up. I mean, I started writing and publishing full time 2011, and it wasn't my plan to do self-publishing or even start publishing. My plan was to write a book. I'd just been made redundant, but when I was already a writer, but I worked there for 19 years, so that would give me 19 weeks pay, because that was the minimum we were allowed to do. So I thought, well, if I can eke that out for a little bit, I can just be a writer for sort of 4 months or something, just write a book. I already had interest from a publisher called Solaris, who had rejected a previous book of mine, but said, "We really like you, and we want you to pitch us your next book." So that was my plan: write that book, pitch it, and then go back to a proper job. But then I got sucked into publishing and writing and publishing, mostly publishing other people to start with. But I was involved quite early on when the Kindle changed everything for self-publishing and science fiction publishing. And the quality of artwork then is just nothing like as good as it is now. And now I would say it's better than most of the big publishers, because I think the people who do a lot of the artwork, they get the audience, I think, particularly for things like military science fiction and perhaps space opera, they get the audience better than I think a lot of the traditional publishers do. So yeah, you can't skim. I'll give you an example of a book that was, I think, number 2 in science fiction short stories or something back in 2011. The author had taken a webcam shot of their face, which was square, so they'd stretched it to make it proper rectangle. Obviously, the aspect ratio of their face was distorted. And that was it. That was the cover. And I put some text on it, and that was a cover of the book.
I have seen some really bad covers. I just don't. It's like there's just no effort goes in there, or just when it's like a little bit of writing and it's like a bit of colour. It's like, well, I don't know. I've said it on other videos. I'm really bad for looking and buying. I especially on that Amazon and stuff. I see a picture, I think, oh, okay. And if the picture doesn't grab me, I won't. I just don't look at it. If it's generic and they all look the same, it won't. If it's something interesting, then I'll do it. And sometimes I've bought books without even reading the back. I just see it, and I'm like, right, okay, add it to the basket, and I just buy it. Yeah, so it's it needs a good picture. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. You can't. I don't think you can succeed without it, really. Not anymore.
No, I agree. I completely agree with you. So, do you have any? So you. No, that's what. Should we talk about your other book, the one that you've just released, the one with the big worm on it?
The big worm.
The big worm. I can't always call it off the top of my head. The mech and the worm, and it's all going down.
Yeah. So this one.
That's it.
Doesn't look anything like Dune at all. Because obviously it's underground. It's in a tunnel, so it's not underground with sand. It's underground with rocks. So it's completely different.
It's a cave worm.
Yeah, I mean the artwork I think is great with that. When I did the previous one, I just had a one-line throwaway. That is also underground. Throwaway comment of release the worms, or release the I can't remember, the rock crawlers or whatever they were called. So there's some monster thing was being let loose so people wouldn't investigate the tunnels too closely while the dodgy things were going on there. And that was just one line. But so I explained in a minute. I wrote a little mini trilogy, but I brought in I requested to co-author the last one. So I ended up with Chris Kennedy. We just mentioned him.
Yes.
So he's one of the main co-authors of the Four Horsemen universe, and in fact he publishes them. So he said, "Oh, we got to have the worms. They were the best bit of it." So we had the worms, and he actually wrote the scenes with them in the end. And I said, "Well, that's just such a dramatic scene. We just got to go with the worms." So I said, my suggestion for this book is we'll have the scene with the worms. So it came out and everybody said, Dune, Dune, Dune.
Yeah, I was reading some of the reviews on it, and I saw like this one review saying, "Oh, why are people copying Dune and stuff or whatever?" And I was sort of thinking, they're not copying. Like, you can have worms and you're not copying someone else. You know, like people like that do my head in. But no, I like that. Go on, sorry. Go on.
It does show. I mean, Dune was 60s, I think, early mid 60s. I think for a book, The Soul and I Am, to have such an immediate effect that you can't do one without people saying Dune all these years later. And I think it says a lot for Frank Herbert, wasn't it? Yeah, a lot for the book. It really is a classic.
Well, they're still trying to make them bringing out the movie, aren't they? They're still trying to do it.
Yeah, I saw a movie. They did a sci-fi miniseries a few years back. Oh, that was all right. I thought, do we really want to see it again? Just read the book.
Do you know, I've never watched any of the movies or the miniseries or whatever. I haven't read a book yet of it. I've never gone near like the more popular books. I always go to the indie stuff more just because everyone reads the popular stuff. So I go to the indie stuff. So like everyone talks about it and I'm like, I've got no idea. I know there's a worm and spice, but that's it.
Nice, yeah. Yeah, well, I think it's one of the things about having so many books now. When I about 2002 or something, I joined the British Science Fiction Association, got involved with people locally who talk to other people who like books. And I spent years thinking, oh, I don't know this book and I don't understand this author. I'm feeling a little bit dumb because I didn't know all this stuff. And some of the books I try and say, like J.G. Ballard, I'm sure he's a great guy. People really enjoy his book. I don't. It's like it's nothing wrong with me, but it's taken quite a few years for me to accept that. I like what I like, and I'm perfectly legitimate for me to like what I like, and I don't like some other stuff. And there's no pressure. And it's too big now anyway. You can't read all the books.
No, it's so hard.
If you read back to people in talking about science fiction conventions and fandom back in the early days, 50s and 60s, I think there was a time when you could read all the major books in a year, and then of course you go and talk to somebody and they will probably have read most of the books, so you have a little intelligent conversation. And I think that in some ways that must have been really quite good to feel that you knew all the books.
Yes.
But no way. I mean, it's something like 100,000 science fiction books published a year. Is just ridiculous.
It's easier now. I think it's other before, like you had to be published, and then it's like they had their published dates and their timetable, and they wanted 1 or 2 books a year or whatever it was. Like now you can just pump them out and go. And I think it's with the software, like it's easier for people to be able to write, and with the spelling and stuff to do books.
Yes. Yeah. And dictation as well. I mean, I spent 20 years coding, and my wrists are unhappy about that still, but to be able to dictate, it makes it so much easier. And when you get it working, it's really fast. And also because it helps you. What I sometimes do now is I talk into the microphone and I don't look at what it's bringing up as text. So it stops me thinking about editing. So I just get in the story, and I just completely get embroiled in the story.
So is that how you do it? You talk, and that's how you...
It varies. Yeah, it's not always the same way, but my preferred way is to focus on the story and the characters, what's happening from their point of view. I'm not worried about how all the words make sense or whether they're being translated by the voice recognition software. I can come back and do that later, and I'm better off. I get a better story and deliver it faster if I kind of do the story and figure out where the characters go and what they're feeling. Get that done first, and then I can go back and say I can go and fill in, better description and things like choreographing fight scenes. I will have a go at it, but I'll probably then come back and then rethink it. I cut a bit out because it just wasn't very interesting, and I make other bits more variable and more interesting vocabulary or whatever. But for me, it's 2 different ways of thinking, and authors have different approaches. But a lot of authors who do write quickly will say something like this: that it's a mistake to get caught into whether the words sound good and whether they are, using cliches, for example. Cliches are good because you don't have to think about what the words are. You're thinking about stories. It's more important to think about stories and characters, because ultimately that's what readers want. Most readers aren't interested in, what word you chose.
Yeah, I never think about that. No. Unless obviously a specific word gets used all the time. You never notice, as long as the sentence reads in your head and it's easy to get in and just, I'm completely with you on that.
I mean, you can write really broken, choppy, dull sentences that sort of sap the energy out of the story. That is true. You do need to put work into it and craft it. But I would say, particularly in space opera, military science fiction, I would say 90% of people, what makes you read that book or carry on that series is the characters. 5% is probably the guns, probably.
See, I'm probably that 5%. As much as I like I do like the characters are good, but I can suffer dull characters to a degree, or not so dull because they're really dull, boring. But I can suffer if the action's really going on. Like I love personally loads of ships blowing each other up with loads of tanks blowing each other up, and then you've got a character trying to survive and work out the issue. But I'm just a simple man, so I'm that 5%. But I do like good characters. Like obviously, if they do their stuff and they get you really emotionally involved in it and stuff, I do. I'm listening to it's M.R. Forbes' Forgotten Starship series, one of the books, and a lot of action does happen, but there's so much going on with the characters. The characters are keeping me going with it as well. So I suppose I'm maybe a bit of both, I suppose. But I don't know. Anyway, I'm rambling. Go on, continue.
You've got to have the action. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, especially military science fiction. I mean, mainstream military science fiction, you've got to have. You can't just talk about conflict. You've got to blow some stuff up.
Yeah, it's good. Good bit of explosions, always nice.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with these guys, lots of explosions. Not just worms. So 1 minute to midnight. They do. That's because the Earth is going to get blown up, basically.
Can you tell us more? Tell us about that book, because I don't know nothing. So
if you come across the Four Horsemen universe, right? So for anybody who doesn't know, there's I think this week is the 50th book, if I'm right.
Oh, wow.
For a series that started, that started in 2017. So on these books, you will see these people. So they're human mercenaries, and they're in mechs that are called Caspers, Combat Assault System Personal. So the idea is this is set, I don't know, 150 years in the future or something. So there's been a first contact thing in a very loosely organized galaxy. There's no galactic police or imperial army or anything like that. It's all very, very loose with some guilds. And it turns out that there's nothing that the aliens want from us because we haven't got anything to sell, except our first contact is a bit of a argy-bargy going on there, and we're outclassed by the aliens in terms of military, but they recognize the fighting, tendency to fight, being good at fighting. And not many races are naturally good at fighting, it seems, in this galaxy. So we are probationary, the 37th mercenary race licensed to the Mercenary Guild. So the reason that humans throughout the series do lots of cheating. That's what the aliens think. So we develop these mechs to get better and better because we're just slaughtered by the aliens otherwise. We can't compete them in any other way. So this is 100 years after the original contact, and now these mechs are getting quite good. So the series starts off with the co-creators Buck Wandry and Chris Kennedy, and they there are 4 sort of Premier League mercenary companies called the Four Horsemen. So it's 4 separate mercenary companies. So it starts off and it looks as if there's going to be one adventure for Cartwright's Cavaliers. They're one of the mercenary companies. That's the first book. And then one that Mark wrote that one. Then one for one of Chris's mercenary companies, and another adventure for one of Mark's mercenary companies. And that was going to be how it would work. You would write an adventure for your mercenary company, but you could see there's something going on in the background. But then after 4 books, it shifts. So this original idea, the sort of mantra of Four Horsemen universe, kill aliens, get paid, it's still sort of there all the way through. And in some books, even now, that's basically what it's all about. But there are other things going on as well. So they did something that I thought was pretty extraordinary and brave, possibly foolhardy, but worked. So after 2 books, just as it was getting started, they said, well, who wants to join in and do an anthology? So they had loads of people, including some quite successful authors and some new ones, who wanted to write stories set in this universe. And for me, this what got me interested. It's like a role-playing game. So I used to read my Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master Guide and so on when I was waiting for the bus to school, and I just loved the idea of this open role-playing game setting that is very open, and you can basically do whatever you want, set your own adventures in it. And I think authors really got off that idea. So one of those authors was a guy I was publishing at the time called J.R. Handley, and his mate Corey Truex. So I think you know J.R., don't you?
Yes.
Top guy.
He's a nice guy, very nice.
Very nice, yeah. A very admirable guy as well. So he sent me his story and said, you've got to get involved with this thing. I've written this story. You've got to look at it. It can't be rubbish. It's got to be good. So I went through, I did an edited job on it before he submitted, or he and Corey submitted it. So JR's very, gets very excited and very, likes to put people together. He's a bit of a matchmaker.
Yes, he's the contact man, he is.
Yes, yeah. So we got in a situation where he wanted me to write For It's You story, and he was flicking between me and Chris Kennedy, and we thought the only way, Chris and I together thought the only way to calm JR down really was for me to go and write a story. So I did. So my one came out in the next anthology. First one was You Never Guess, A Fistful of Credits. Well, this was the second one. So now it's Nick Cole.
Yep.
Was one of them. So he's a co-author of Savage Wars, who that just won the Dragon Award.
Yes, yes.
And in the previous one of the authors, Brad Torgerson, he won the Dragon Award last year. So some pretty high-flying authors, loads of them. And bear in mind, the series this was coming from had only had 2 novels at that point, and now 2 even fatter anthologies, because all these authors were wanting to get involved with it and getting so excited, and they were all bringing their audience with them, and it made the novels really sort of rise up, and people, it all worked. I thought that's a really early thing to do, to bring in all these people. But it was like this role-playing game setting. And this is the Cartography Guild and this alien race, and you got the Peacemakers, a bit like Texas Rangers idea, and then the Bounty Hunters. Oh, I want to do a story about Peacemakers. I want to do a story about this alien race. And people were really excited, enthusiastic, and it really came through the enthusiasm, and they massively expanded the sort of the universe, all these authors. And I think that's one of the strengths. Right early on, it got a lot of people involved with it, all very creative, and it's become something much bigger, much faster than it would have been if the original 2 authors, Mark Wandry and Chris Kennedy, had just carried on themselves. So I wrote a story in that. I think that was the 4th book. I had a story with a group called the Midnight Sun Free Company. That was my little bunch. So my specialty is they were they're on an ancient alien ship. I'll tell you what it was. Is it Goodwood's Revival? There's a motor racing thing where they have Jag E-types and really fancy old cars, and they race them hard. People own the cars and they pay proper drivers to go and race proper racing. And I thought the idea of having a Jag E-type and then getting it pristine, and then getting a proper racer to race it like a total nutter on the race car, where they have accidents and crash and all that. I just thought it was a bizarre idea. So you get this ancient antique ship with this super duper alien wealthy owner, and this mercenary company is like so the ship is like the Jag E-type, and the mercenary company is like the driver. So what's the point of having a warship if you don't have somebody go off and fight with it? So that was this idea. So they liked that. So then I wrote a novel, which I think was the 6th main arc novel, Midnight Sun, which came out in 2000 and I don't know, whenever it was, 18. So it was a big long gap. So now I said, because I'd been out so long, I said to Chris, I was a bit cheeky actually, and it might have been because the Chimera Company wasn't selling as well as I'd wanted. I said, can I do a trilogy? And he said that was all right. And I said, well, I like the idea of it being properly embedded in the main story. So can I co-write with one of the other main authors? So we get involved with their company as well. And it made sense because the Midnight Sun Free Company are a bit weak on sort of heavy assault troops. So it would make sense because a lot of the companies specialize in one thing or another. So I would combine with somebody specializing in heavy assault, because I know I'd have to assault a strongly fortified position at the end of the series. So it did make sense from the story as well. So yeah, Chris said that was all right. So I actually ended up writing some Four Horsemen scene on the Four Horsemen company. So that one came out in February, Endless Night. And then we have that one came out, I don't know, June or something. And then that one came out a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
1 minute to midnight. So they are all linked, all the stories, and there's another couple of short stories I wrote. They're all linked, and they all lead to the end of it, and it all finishes. So maybe some people survive, maybe they don't, but everything's led to this for all the stories that I've written. So it's really satisfying to do that, to go back to throwaway short stories. I just wrote a short story, never realizing I'd write novels for it, and they all combine, and a little trilogy released pretty short, together over about 5 months. I think is much more satisfying than doing one in an 18-month gap. because people just run through this sort of it's like a mini arc within a in a TV series. You get the mini arc where they go off to the alternate dimension or something, but it's not that dimension, but it's a bit like that. And it's in a particular geographical area, the Spine Nebula, which is like a flyover sector of the galaxy. It's one of the things about the galaxy in this setup is you can get anywhere to anywhere else in about 4 jumps through the stargates, except in the Spine Nebula, because there's 15 star systems, but there's only one way in and one way out. Nobody knows why until they read the books, that is. But there is a reason. Nobody realizes at the start, and there's been some things going on there for a long time. And as each book finishes, you realize the puzzle's a bit bigger than you thought it was. And one of the things I do like about it is, in between me writing that, in fact, while I was writing the book with Chris Kennedy, he was also writing a book with Mark Wandry, which is the book that was released before it in the series. So yeah, that absolutely did tie in this time really, really pretty well. So that's satisfying. So yeah, gosh, but imagine, I think that's 50th. There's one more just come out or about to come out this week. 50 books since 2017. That is astonishing.
That's a lot of books. Can you tell me, so any of your characters I'm really interested about the 3 books you're just talking about. Do we know anything you can talk about spoiling it or whatever you feel like spoiling? If you want to spoil it, I'll just put a spoiler on it or whatever. But yeah, so characters or what a vague of what's going on, why they're doing, because I'm really interested. I want to know. I'm curious now.
So I had this idea. I said this idea about the who owns the Jag E-type.
Yep,
so I just had this Gloriana, I called her, this alien. We don't even know what species she is. But in the first of those novels, the one that came out last 2018, the species is revealed. They're called Goltar, and she's a high councillor of the Goltar, and they've been hiding for quite a while in a bit of a grump, really, because they used to be big dogs and they got sort of pushed to the sidelines, but they're incredibly wealthy. And in this series, you learn why they're wealthy, because we start to unpin the source of their wealth, and it's actually more complex than they realize. So that's one side, is Gloriana and the Goltar. So there's had a sort of uneasy alliance between her, Gloriana, and the 2 sisters who run the company, who are called Sun and Blue. So Blue is a bit of an interesting character because she's a bit mad. She had an alien morphogenic tattoo. She went off to a starport where there's no laws, and she had a tattoo that didn't go right. So she's completely got no hair, and she has tattoos, and her skin does very strange things, and she's a little bit mad. She's become a thrill seeker, so thrill addict. So she's totally not suitable for doing what she's doing. So it's not clear why it is that Gloriana wants to risk her company with this slightly deranged person. It doesn't seem to really work. But she's sort of kept a level head by her sister, who's Sun, and Blue gets more and more involved with the ship itself, and then learns that the ship itself is alive. And as time goes by, they come closer and closer and closer linked. So one of the things you see in the books is you realize why these people are all here for a reason. They've been selected, and they have a purpose in mind. There's been a long laid plan, and it's about to come to fruition, and they need the sisters to make it happen. So they're always quite interesting. So she is the sort of person who doesn't give a monkey's what people think about her, and she says exactly what she wants, and it's often entirely the wrong thing. So the aliens tend to hate her because she doesn't respect them. She just takes the mickey out of them all the time. So she's great fun to write, but because she's got this connection with the ship, she often takes direct control in the space battles, and it does allow her to do things with the ship that can win, often because she's using tactics that aren't available for other space navies, because she has a connection with the ship that allows her to maneuver. The ship is also unique. It's from an earlier age. So that took quite a bit of work, really. I guess the ship is itself a character. It's not overpowering of the other ships, but it has different armament and it has different particularly maneuver capability. So it has weaknesses to compensate. So I don't think it overpowers, because
it's unknown. Because it's unknown, they don't know how to counter it yet. Basically, yeah.
Midnight Sun is the ship, and I think that that becomes a character in its own right, and it starts to get a reputation. So in the beginning, so Endless Night is fun. Endless Night is a criminal organisation has taken over the Spy Nebula, so they're in there all the way through. So what was I going to say? I don't know. In a moment, I was talking about Midnight Sun, wasn't I?
Yes. Talk about the ship. Then you said that gang organisation took over the Spy Nebula or something. You said.
Spy Nebula.
Yep.
I don't know where I was headed. But the ship is definitely a character worth looking. Oh yes. So at the beginning, I sort of explain what happened between that book and that book. Partly for people who think, well, what's happened to these people? I haven't seen them for ages. But also for anybody who starts off with that one, that's all they need to get. They don't need to read the previous ones at all. So they've been raiding the supply lines of the. Now I must be careful what I say here because it will give away spoilers for other people's books. But raiding supply lines for people who are doing bad things to the people of Earth. Let's put it like that.
We'll leave it at that then.
Yeah. The Midnight Sun has got a bit of reputation. It's a bit like it's like the pigeon. You catch the pigeon. It's an ancient warship with a mad captain. But it's a bit like that. Everyone's trying to capture it, but nobody quite can. But they're not super powerful, but they're smart and they've got allies who are hiding around, making them seem a little bit more invulnerable than they really are. So there's some of the characters, and I have fun with aliens as well. I have one of my favourites in this one is an enormous alien called a Tortantula. It's a bit like a spider, but huge. Sort of modern weapons wouldn't even penetrate, and absolutely live to eat other people.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, 10 feet tall. They're enormous. And she's called Betty. I just thought that was not what you expect. Named by they have riders, or sort of small furry aliens, about a foot, meter tall or something, and the alien rider Flatigy has persuaded Betty that Betty is a name of great power for humans. I apologise to anybody called Betty. You might be watching this. I had great fun with her. So she certainly starts off in the series, and she's a great fun to write. I must admit, I do quite enjoy writing alien characters. It gives you a chance to do things that are completely objectionable. Like, what happens if you're somebody who, your whole being is really about destroying things and eating things?
That's cool. Yeah. So then, okay. So where do the worms fit into this then? Because they're in the caves. Yeah, the worm caves.
Yeah. So there are ancient buried artifacts in the Spy Nebula, which is one of the reasons it's been shut away.
Mm-hmm.
It's shut away because it was originally, there are other reasons, but as a defensive choke point.
Right, okay.
Essentially, to protect something.
Right.
So there are things that have been buried. So one of the reasons you've got things in tunnels and mines is because they're access points to one of these buried things.
Cool.
So what you see in the dark before the night is the battles in the tunnels, which are interesting thing to do. That's meant to be a tunnel and some sort of barricade. But what are they? But there's lots of fainting and misdirection of what's going on. And one of the things is that the endless night, these criminal people are trying to get their hands on one of these ancient things. I don't even know what they are yet. So they think they've had distractions, and the good guys, the Midnight Sun and the Spine Patriots who are allied with them, they think that they've won the battles, but it turns out they haven't quite done that. So they put these, I can't even remember what we called them now, the worms. We didn't call them worms. Let's call them worms. Rock worms. How about that? And they're let loose in order to dissuade people from investigating too closely. So give the Endless Night time to do all the devious and dirty things that they're going to do.
Good.
Start blowing things up, because that's what they want to do.
I like that. That's good.
They don't want to blow things up. They want to extort money from people, so they don't have to blow things up, because that would be a shame, wouldn't it?
Yeah, basically. Okay, right. Well, I think we've covered everything you said. Is there would you like to say anywhere that people can contact you? If you'd like anyone, a Facebook or a website or anything, do you have anything like that if you want to be contacted?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is there's humanlegion.com. It's all one word. And you can find things in there. It started off, my main series was the Human Legion. There's also the Sleeping Legion from J.R. Handley, other things. I had a section for other stories. So I've written all these Four Horsemen novels. They're in the other stories. I really ought to do something about that, because I've written quite a few of them now. But yeah, you can find out all this sort of stuff, lots of artwork, and you can sign up to join the Legion, which is, a newsletter thing where you get the Legion bulletin with news and stuff, but you also get free stories for all the different series, including Chimera Company and the Four Horsemen universe. So that's a good way to find me out. And also there's a Human Legion page on Facebook as well, which you can always find me there too.
Okay, because what I'll do is I'll put the links in the description just so anyone can find it. I'll put your Amazon link as well so they can see all your books. Come nice like that. Okay, right. Well, I think we spoke about everything. I'm happy. Are you happy?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone who's watching. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Let me just... boom. Oh, there we go. We got live. Right.